Welcome to the My Way podcast with Andrew Jones. This is where entrepreneurs share their way of running a business. We'll discuss what habits and strategy are required to scale a successful business. Right, Aled, welcome to the My Way podcast. Thank you for taking the time to come on. I just want to start off with your, journey into entrepreneurship and just tell the listeners a little bit more about Lumen SEO and your journey so far.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. I've genuinely been looking forward to this. I'm like counting down the days, writing on the wall. So it's been it's been an absolute joy so far, to be completely honest. Lots of highs, lots of very, very big lows. I was fortunate enough, and this is part of the reason I do so many kind of speaking gigs in schools and colleges and stuff, because I was lucky enough to grow up in quite an entrepreneurial family. So when I was really young, my parents decided that they wanted to quit their jobs and start a soap business, essentially. Yeah. So I grew up around that. I grew up coming home from school and they'd be there, working away. If I was ill in school, they could come pick me up. And there was all those kind of, I guess, like privileges of having parents who started their own business, but also seeing the hard times as well. I remember some of the tough financial times and how that would directly impact what we'd be eating and how many, like if we were going on holiday or not and stuff like that. So it was really valuable to be exposed to those realities so early on. And then just went from there. It went from when me and my brother were really young, we used to, we would take like household objects. We would check that mum didn't want them first, like little plants. And my brother would like deploy me in front of like a neighbour's door and go, and I'd be there like, can you buy this plant for £1? And I was like, I don't know, like 6, 7 years old. We always just had like a buzz for it. And even in our teenage years, that turned into like car washing. We'd go around and wash like our neighbours' cars. And since then, I've always just had a bit of a love for seeing businesses offer real value, honest value. And that's something I've been kind of passionate about ever since. And that all came to 4 years ago. Yeah. Pandemic saw kind of a bit of a demand for digital services. It makes it sound that planned. It wasn't that planned, if I'm honest. I just really wanted to quit my job at the time because I didn't really enjoy working from home. And that's when Lumen SEO started, because I felt that businesses deserved a better SEO service than what I'd been seeing.
Perfect. We'll go into that. Going back to your parents starting that business, I think the older you get in life, with the more responsibilities you have, the more pressure there is. What do you think drove them to just give up their jobs and say, right, okay, we're starting a business?
I think it was a lot of things. I would say the two main ones, particularly for my parents, first of all, was what I think is one of the greatest motivators to start a business, which was frustration. I mean, my mum despised the skincare industry. She would like buy products for like shampoos for me and my brother. We come out in rashes, like we it would be really problematic. She'd hear of other, mums having the same problems. And so she was motivated by frustration, by the sheer hate for an industry. So I think that was one of the other things. And I think on the lighter side, the lifestyle incentives of it, in terms of the fact that they kind of realised that they could start the business anywhere. We lived in Magor at the time, so it's just outside of Newport, and we always wanted to live by the beach. So they went, look, we can start this business anywhere. Let's start it by the seaside. So I think they saw the liberties that comes with being self-employed, which today are even better in terms of being location independent, but also that motivator of real just frustration. She just said, this industry is not good enough. I want to reinvent this.
Awesome, amazing. I think you're extremely fortunate to have that exposure at an early age of your parents starting a business. What were some of the key things that you learned and that I suppose then you took into Lumen SEO?
Not to start a business with family. No, that's not true. I mean, we were just saying, right? Like, there's certain things you can say to staff, to team members that you can't say to your family. So there's definitely, that was one of the learnings. I think one of the biggest ones was probably the transparency that they practiced with the products, in terms of how conscious they were of ingredients being displayed, how important the natural and organic side of the products being. That fed into the way I wanted to approach industries. And so now what I do is I always say to people, like, they must go, you must love SEO. I'm like, to be honest, it's a bit of a snooze fest. Like, have you, like, do you really think I'd go home and read like textbooks on SEO? Like, no, I'm reading about stuff I'm really passionate about. So what it meant is that it allowed me to see business as a vehicle for change. And that's when I speak to a lot of young people about starting a business. I always say, maybe don't actually go for your passion. Go for the thing that really frustrates you. Go for the part of the world that you want to change. And I think this is what teachers should be asking young people. Not what do you want to be, what do you want to change? And I think that's probably the biggest thing I took from it. I saw them taking something and finding every way they could to change it. And that meant that when times got really low, they still had their core purpose, their why that pulled them through. And so starting a business is the vehicle for that. It's the vehicle for that change you want to see. And I think that's the biggest thing I picked up from them.
Yeah, I think that's a big challenge that a lot of people face at the moment is a lot of people say follow your passion. Let's just take, for example, you're a golf professional and you then go and you work as a golf pro. Something that you used to do as your hobby every single day, you've now got financial pressure on you as well.
Yes.
So being able to have that separation is quite important. Going into the Lumen SEO side of things then and that transparency, and that's something that you massively pride yourself on. Do you think it's a frustration with other agencies in the industry that they kind of don't really have that?
I think so, yeah. I think that's where it comes from. I think it's worth mentioning as well that the transparency itself is internal and external. That's a really key piece of it. I think people often will perceive the whole transparency thing as being kind of our pitch, our sales pitch. But it's internal as well. Like everyone in the company knows everyone's getting paid. Everyone knows each other's salary. Everyone knows each other's responsibility. Like everything is completely transparent in that sense, in terms of the structure, in terms of shared ownership of the company that we're introducing now. So it's got to be internal as much as it's external. Because if my people are going to deliver a truly trustworthy experience to clients, they've got to feel they can trust me.
Yeah.
Do you mean you kind of, it goes both ways. You don't tell them how to do it, you show them how to do it. So you set that example. It is a frustration. I think it's a common frustration for so many businesses now that, and it was why I started, because I was working in marketing teams before. I'd been handed a proposal, which first of all was so boring. It's marketing.
Yeah.
It's not accountancy, it's not law. We've got every permission, we've got every right to excite people. And so why have I received a 20-page A4 document, which, by the way, isn't even broken down? It's just this fee at the end. It's like, and that will cost £10,000. Okay, well, tell me how many hours that is. Tell me how many things are being produced for that. Tell me what the key measurables of that are. There was such a lack of transparency. That's why now our proposals are like so wrong in so many ways. You don't read them, you watch them. They're short, but they are packed with every specific piece of what we'd like to do.
Yeah.
So they understand. And it's a great thing, because then sometimes we get clients going, actually, that bit of that proposal, could I have a little run at that? Could you show me how to do that? Sounds fun. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen your proposals, and they are very different. And you use video, and you do it obviously over Loom, you run through the presentation. But what's really cool about it is it brings it to life a little bit more, and there's that personal connection. I still feel like people buy from people.
Yes.
How important do you feel like personal brand is when it comes to the business? I know you put yourself out there, and I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. It's uncomfortable. I think when people ask, like, what's the biggest challenge at the moment, apart from finding really good talent, I'd say the other thing is that personal branding side. I want to be. There was a great saying I heard a little while ago, where it's that it's better to be loved for the person that you are rather than be loved for the person that you're not. Right. And I think that comes with that with personal branding. I'm trying to be that transparent, friendly, approachable SEO guy. But at the same time, there are so many things about the world and employment and education that really frustrate me, and that's what I want to represent. So it's a case of constantly and slowly making myself more uncomfortable and being okay with that in terms of the problems that I'm posting about, or the statements that I'm trying to make, and just going, this is okay, because even if people hate me for those things, at least that came from me. That came from that is authentic to me, not me trying to be a bit of a monkey and just kind of dance to whoever's tune that they prefer,
I think it's accepting as well, and I say this with people when they're really struggling to put themselves out there for the business, is that they're not your customer. They're not the person that you're trying to resonate with. You can't possibly put something out and it's going to resonate with everyone. You have it yourself. There's things that you see that you think, I don't actually agree with that. So why do we expect that we'll put something out and then all of a sudden everyone's like, do you know what? You're absolutely right. With the building of that confidence and taking uncomfortable action. You do a lot of talks in education through Big Ideas Wales and things like that. What would your advice be to someone that does struggle to put themselves out there, or with public speaking in particular? What would your approach be with that?
Start small, but also start. I think we probably spend a lot of time dithering and faffing when it comes to wanting to do something that is uncomfortable. You'll never believe you can achieve something until you start creating evidence. And if you start waiting for the right time, that will never arrive, right? So it's about, what is the thing I can do today to start the 1%, like to make the 1% difference towards that thing I want to be, that thing I want to do, that thing I want to create. So to make that actually, to land that, make that more specific, if someone comes to me and says, I want to get better at public speaking, what should I do? Well, don't throw yourself on a stage in front of 100 people. That's how you terrify yourself into never doing it again. What's the first thing you can do? All right. And even maybe it's not even putting a social media post up there, like a video that's 30 seconds long about something you're really passionate about. Maybe it's even smaller than that. Maybe it's just uploading a photo going, hey, here's my story. And if you really want people to respond to that, I always say, end it with a question. End it with a question, and ensure that everything you put out there, you're putting it through this screen every time of, is this valuable or is this showboating?
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I'm sick of seeing all the showboating.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. But there are some great people right now punching through and essentially questioning the world around them, but also posting in a way that, and putting themselves out there in a way publicly that represents something and that offers people real value. So those people, I'd say, look, start with the lowest friction version of the thing that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And usually that's just, put a photo out there. Here's my story. What do you do after that? Okay, well, the next thing I'll do after that, I'll do a little 20-second clip, and maybe we won't even have my face in it. It'll be me just like voice with something in the background. Just start, right? Don't worry about the peak of the mountain. You'll get to that. It's the first step.
And I think something that's really important on that as well is it's like the peak of your mountain. With social media, it's very easy to look at other people and maybe how far you feel like they're ahead of you, or I wouldn't be able to do that. But you've got to remember, this isn't their first time of doing it. They've been doing this absolutely years. I remember probably like 5 years ago, I went to an event, I saw someone doing public speaking, and he was phenomenal, right? Just completely controlled the room. And I had a chat to him after, and he'd done over 1,000 public speaking engagements. And I was like, that's why he's so good. But it's knowing that I've got to start somewhere, and as long as I'm getting better day in, day out, then that's the main thing. Going back to the business side of things, so you've put yourself out there, you've done the uncomfortable situations, you're talking about things that you believe in. When do you feel like you've had your biggest breakthroughs at Lumen?
Oh, do you know why that's such a great question? Is because it's really hard to answer. Because when I tell people how we got to this point now, it would probably take about like 10 hours to talk about all the little specific things, because that's it. It's not what you see in the films. It's not these big kind of sexy discoveries, that, oh my God, this is groundbreaking. It's not. It's like, oh, how do we remove that paragraph from that report so it's more interesting? How do we get a little animation made at the end of our report so that people find them a bit, they're perceptively more professional? That post, how do we make that easier to read? It's all the little things, the little changes that build up. It's that kind of all those little things that kind of those little gains, I guess, that take you to that place. I think if I was to pick out the biggest little gains, if that makes sense, I think the biggest thing was we made our switch completely to video. So I said this to the team. I said, from now on, a client will never read anything. They will watch something. Yeah. So they watch a proposal. They watch a report. If they've asked a question about how we do something, they watch that. They watch me telling them how to do it. That really helped because, as you say, when we look at the pain of our industry, it's that there is a lack of transparency and trust. Well, if they feel like they're seeing me all the time, or they're seeing their account manager all the time, so it's something we'll pass on to our account manager that we hire in now, there's that level of understanding and personal relationship that you have with those people that makes them feel looked after. Because that's it. We're not here to provide marketing, really. I don't think we're here to provide SEO particularly. No. We're here to provide confidence. We're here to provide that marketing director with the confidence to go to their CEO, their director, and say, okay, this is what's grown. This is what's improved. We're selling them job retention.
Yeah.
Right? Not marketing performance. Well, that's just
It's
the
the
vehicle.
emotion behind what you're selling is what does it mean to them as a customer.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing that has to be mentioned is people. You've got to have the right people. And I wish, there's two things I wish people would stop doing. First of all, hiring based off skills. You can teach those. We still get it now. We get people applying, they go, I don't know much better. So I'm like, great. We know loads. I'll teach you that one.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But like skills like communication, public speaking, teamwork, and it takes longer to teach those things. They have to be learnt over time. So I think that's one of the biggest ones in terms of finding the right people, but also then having the right environment within your business to allow those people to grow. And I hope that we have that. We'll know we're still doing that right because our job retention will continue to be strong. Yeah.
I love what you're saying about all the little details because they do matter. And I was literally seeing something a few days ago, and it was the past CEO of Twitter, and he was saying, perfect the details and reduce the amount of details. So like anything that you do really well, but try and actually simplify what you're doing. Going back to your recruitment strategy, you're saying that you're very much, it's not about the skills, you can teach the skills, it's about those soft skills and interpersonal skills. What does your strategy look like for recruiting the right people then?
Yeah, it's good. It's getting more challenging now as well because, you know, the amount of applications we're getting has gone from like 50 to the most recent one was 150. So trying to cut through that noise is I enjoy it because it's the part of the business and the why I do that I find fascinating. How can we bring someone into the business and literally change their life? Like how do we make them more confident? How do we take on the challenges, the deep-rooted challenges that they want to take on about the person they are, and how can we be a vehicle for that change they want to see in themselves? Some of the tricks for attracting the right people, a lot of it is kind of the Aesop's fable thing, the sun and the wind. It's being the kind of environment and publishing your environment publicly on social media that attracts the right kind of person. I think it's also honesty as well.
Yeah.
So I'm often honest with, and because from the outside it looks really good working. You know, you got the 4-day weeks, got regular trips that we do together, the yoga, the lunches, the dinner, like all those things. You'll see those things. What you don't see is a very, very hard job. Like I would genuinely be disappointed if I spoke to any of the team today and said, how'd you find the job? And if they said it was easy, right, we're failing. Because if things are easy, you're not really creating anything of massive value. Great things come from hardship. And so I would hope that they'd say, yeah, the job's really hard, but we're really well rewarded.
Yes.
That's what I would hope.
What was the thinking, that 4-day week then? Because I feel like going back around sort of COVID time, there was a lot of publicity around the 4-day week and it was really growing. And what was your reason for introducing it? And what are the pros and cons been of it?
It's a bit out there, but I genuinely think for so many industries, there is now no excuse not to have a 4-day week. Similar in the way that we were shocked back in, you know, the 20th century when we went to a 6-day week, 5-day week, right? There was shock horror, but now we get used to it. In terms of the efficiencies that we now have access to, and I don't even mean AI, you know, I mean just basic things like Slack, Google Drive, you know, the things that make it so we have to move so much less paper and do so much less communicating. I think it's a bit of a responsibility for companies to start moving to a 4-day week in many ways. Now, I appreciate that's coming from a marketing agency. I think it's easier for us.
Yes.
I think it's harder for other industries. Do you know what I mean? If you stayed at a hotel and no staff were on a Friday, you'd be like, what's going on? But it's a case of just having smart recruiting patterns. There were benefits and drawbacks. It was net positive. That's why we've still got it now, like two years on. Definitely benefits and drawbacks. For the sake of transparency, some of the drawbacks were that it initially, first of all, sticking to it, I think, for a lot of us, because it was not letting our commitment and love for the business and growing it get carried away. Oh, just do a little bit of fun. No. Because what happens is then the standards will start to drop. Yeah. Because you're overworking yourself. So that was probably the initial challenge. I think the other challenge with it was, and this is a positive one, again, it was hard, but it makes things better now, was reducing faff. And I think this is why a lot of businesses, They go, oh, we could never switch to it. And I go, show me all your calendars and I'll find you 4 hours.
Yeah,
That's all it takes, because you go 9-hour day, Monday, Thursday, all you're removing is about 4 hours from the day. I will find you 4 hours that you don't need. And so start with those stupid morning, what do they call them?
Huddles.
Huddles.
Yeah.
Stop that. It's patronising. It makes people feel like they can't really be trusted because they have to declare what they're doing, right? It may sound good to you. To them, it's a pain in the arse. And so I could find 4 hours in most companies, I reckon, and go, right, you don't need those. Give them a 4-day week.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think is it Parkinson's law where you give something a certain amount of time? Like, say you're going to clean your house and you say, right, I'm going to do it for an hour.
Right.
You'll get it done in an hour if you give that time. I think it's probably the same where it comes to your work week. If you know you've got 5 days to do something, you'll just drag that out over those 5 days. And then I see it from an accountability point of view as a coach. I'm like, no, you need to get this done by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, oh my, yeah, and they actually do. So if you allow yourself that time, it's going to take that time. You've done quite a good job. Like, you, as a CEO, you'll go and work away for sort of a month at a time. You work in different cities. How have you built the business? Because I know a lot of CEOs, if I said that to them, it would scare the hell out of them. I said, right, you've got to go and now work for 4 weeks in another country and manage a team remotely. How have you been able to do that effectively?
Delegation and trust. It's the recruiting. It goes back to the recruiting as well. So hiring the kind of people who can be what we call entrepreneurial. So they not only are okay with, but enjoy with planning their own week, deciding the way they want to structure their work into those 4 days. I think is the biggest part of it, is that delegation. I have staff members that I probably speak to twice a week. Chances are one of them is because we're just getting together for someone's birthday lunch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are extremely autonomous. We've set up the business technologically to do that as well. That kind of smart delegation. People get their task list at the start of the week. So delegation's a big part of it. But all those things can happen through environment. I think culture is a little bit overly fetishized in many ways. I think actually it's not so much about culture, but about environment. Do they feel they have the knowledge? Do they feel they've been trained? Do they feel they are confident enough to lead on their own work? That's why I always say, when they make mistakes, I said, did you make the mistakes out of curiosity? If so, good, make more. Did you make the mistake out of inaccuracy? Are you okay? Do you need a break?
Yes.
Do you need to restructure your day? And so the big part of it was delegation. I think delegation, autonomy, and trust as well. Feeling that they can rely on each other as a team to get the advice and the guidance when they need it. That's a big part
Mistakes
of it.
then, let's talk about that, because you've got to love an environment where mini failures along the way are actually celebrated so that everybody can learn. The last thing you want is sort of people covering that up. What's your approach to mistakes and failures?
I use the worst case scenario methodology with the team. So they'll go, oh, I don't think I should do that. And I go, why? What could happen? They'll go, oh, well, maybe, that blog won't rank so well on search. Okay, well, we'll find out why. Yeah. That's okay. And then I'll go, what's the worst case scenario than that? And eventually we'll go down and down and down to the worst case scenario. With the worst case scenario is that we lose the client. Well, that's okay. We got 35 others. Do you know what I mean? And if we lost that client because we tried too hard to make things better, I think that's a much better reason to lose a client than, I don't know, because we...
Lack of innovation.
Lack of
change.
Right.
So many people do the same thing over and over again, and then they lose that spark and creativity because this is the way it's been, and that's what we're always going to do in the future. Whereas if you want to try and test new things all the time, it keeps you innovative, to be honest. So looking at the business, and one thing that you talk quite a lot about, and I've seen it on socials, is like you talked about that environment. And do you have any tools or techniques that you adopt to try and stay as productive as possible, like how you structure your time and how you approach your work?
I'm obsessive. I am really obsessive. Humanity has found itself in this position where we seem to value money more than time. Time is finite. We're all going to die at some point. So I don't know why, and this is a big part of our culture, respect each other's time and respect your own. So come prepared with a question. Like I always say, if you're slap messaging each other, whatever that slap message ends with, it should be a question mark so they can immediately help you. In terms of my own habits, one thing I always say, particularly to people who are starting to get into business, is your idea has no value until it has execution. I think it's one of Daniel Priestley's thing where he says, an idea has no value. Don't start getting cocky about your idea until you've actually executed it. Before you execute the idea, work on your foundations. And those foundations are how healthy are you? How much are you looking after yourself? And I kind of, it's a bit woo-woo, but I often configure it into mind, body, and soul. So how are you looking after your mind? And I'm a big advocate for that being a very different process for men as it is for women. And I think so you've got to look after your mind. You've got to do the things every day that makes you feel powerful and capable.
What's that for you when it comes to your mind?
It's the gym, to be honest. Yeah, I know for a lot of people it's other things like it's mountain biking, it's running or something like that. But if I can do something every single day that makes me feel like I have achieved something at the core of what my body is physically able of. Yeah. That's one thing. Another one I've taken up recently, I think you'll like this one, is Stoicism.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been reading a lot of like Marcus Aurelius' texts first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I find that just sets me up to be more receptive, but also more durable on the world around me.
Yeah, perspective.
100%. I find if I'm reading a Stoic text in the morning and then something unpredictably bad happens in the day, I'm like, that's okay. I can decide how I feel about that. The thing that's happened or the person that has wronged me doesn't get to decide how I feel about that thing.
Yeah.
So that helps. The other thing in terms of like practically managing your time, there's a great book. I think it's Cal Newport's Deep Work.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And he has a system in that called time blocking. And so he blocks out, you have your day in 30-minute units. And I teach this to all the staff, again, to help our 4-day week thrive. And that's been one of the best techniques I've stuck with the entire time because I just can delegate specific things. And it allows you to figure out what's actually important as well. I think we have a thing in the UK where we are chronically, visibly busy. We're obsessed with looking busy, not actually being busy, if that makes sense. So we'll see 2 hours of answering emails as being productive time. They're going to come back. They're going to reply to you and they're going to come back. So then nothing really is being completed there. And so that's another thing as well. The time blocking technique allows you to really focus on what moves the dial.
Yeah. And I always narrow in on that when you go into a business and everybody's extremely busy, but the results aren't there. Well, I'm like, I couldn't care if you got the results in one day instead of 5 or 7 or whatever you want to call it, as long as you're doing the right things. So it's critically thinking about what you're doing and thinking, I'm putting so much time into this, but is it actually working? Or it's like the 80-20 principle. Are there things that I should be absolutely doubling down on that I know are going to generate me more results? I love what you said about the start around that stoicism piece, and it gives you perspective. It's so easy to lose perspective in business around what actually matters. Yeah. Like when I see a business owner who's stressed or burnt out, and this is where I never used to be like this, but I actually do practice a little bit more gratitude now. If you'd said to me 5 years ago I'd be practicing gratitude, I probably would have laughed, right? Yeah. It's not, if you've asked my friends, my family, it's probably not what people would perceive of me. But like I have to go and see a client up in mid Wales, or I've got 2 clients up that I go and see every month, and I have to drive past Heath Hospital every time. And I'm like, there's me worrying about something that's happening in the business or one of my client's business, and there's someone in that hospital that's literally dying. Yeah. And I think when you are able to remind yourself of that perspective more often, I actually think you enjoy the journey more because you realise, stop putting so much bloody pressure on yourself. It doesn't matter. So I think that perspective piece is really important. You talked about in the morning you do those things. How important do you think like a morning routine is as part of all of this?
I think it's massive. I think the tone you set in the morning sets the pace and style for the rest of the day. I do a little bit differently. I've taken a lot from, I've read a lot of like Buddhist texts and a lot of what they do in Buddhist practices. And one of my favorite things that I take from that is in the first thing in the morning, the first hour of the day is mine. That's mine to do with whatever I like. And it's usually pretty early. It's usually around 5:30 a.m. And it's completely my own. And so in that time, I can read about, do a bit of philosophy, do a bit of yoga if I want to do that, do a bit of meditation if I want to do that. Or if there was just that really interesting video that I really wanted to watch the day before, I'll watch that. So I have that time for myself What that does is it removes a lot of the kind of stress generating things that we tend to do in the morning, which generally incorporates rushing, putting yourself in a place of high stress ultimately. And so it's avoiding those, and that morning routine is important. I also should say, I think it's different for everyone. I think people get really het up on like, oh, what's Sahil Bloom doing in the morning? What's Ben Francis doing in the morning? What's Stephen Bartlett doing in the morning?
Yeah.
So, well, no, that's for them. They have a different biology. I think that's really important to mention. They have a different life. They have different people depending on them. So whilst that's my strategy now, that's as a 29-year-old who has no kids. So I appreciate it's going to be so different for different people.
Different for different people. Looking at some of the harder things around entrepreneurships, we've talked about the amazing team you've built, the culture. What's one of the things you struggle with the most?
In terms of like the entrepreneurial journey itself?
Running the business, whether it's the mindset of it, the stresses that come with running a business. What do you find most challenging about being self-employed?
I'm going to go straight deep on this one. Detaching my identity from the success of the business. Well and truly. I've in the times I've had regrets because I've turned up to, say, a family gathering. My family is so important to me. And because I've had to let someone go in the week, or because we lost a client that I felt we really did need to lose, that has infected the situation I have with my family. That's the hardest thing. It's understand that Lumen SEO is a vehicle for my purpose and for my why. If Lumen SEO dies, I still have everything I need, which is the purpose, which is the why. And I'll just go exercise it somewhere else. I'll do more talks in schools. I'll set up some other company that practices transparency. It's just the vehicle. It's not your value. I generally can't think of any other challenge that is bigger than that at the moment. I think that is literally the biggest one, is just allowing it to be something that I am proud of, like you say, and that I am grateful for, but not let it define the value that I offer to the world. It is just a piece of that.
Love that. Absolutely love that. I think a lot of people will be able to resonate with it, especially around something will happen in your business and then you're taking that home and then it's impacting other things. And it's essentially a threat to ego, isn't it, with the business of, if this fails or if it goes wrong, how is this going to reflect on me as a person? What's everybody going to be saying? But whenever I've always thought about that is, I really respect the opinion of the man or woman in the arena. So someone who's actually been there and done it themselves, who's been in that position, I respect that. I think that fear of threat to ego, it holds so many people back from doing what they know they should be doing.
100%.
And people always say, like, what's the biggest threat to a business? It's the person running it, because they have so much power and knock-on effects into other areas of the business. Are they putting themselves out there in the marketing? Are they having those difficult conversations with people? A lot of it does come back to your own mindset.
I think so. I think what I will say to that, though, as well, is that I think we are very guilty of that external locus of control. And I hear a lot of stories of businesses closing down or stopping, and they'll immediately pin it on something that they couldn't directly control.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's easier, right? If things aren't going so well, it's much easier to blame it on something that you can't control, rather than maybe a dial you could have pushed if you just push yourself a little bit harder or learn that thing you needed to learn, right? And I find myself slipping into that a little bit as well. But I think you're spot on, Andrew, with the detachment thing, detaching your ego from your outcomes. Because I think providing, if I'm running a business and that business fails, providing it failed based on the fact that I felt I did everything I possibly could to make it successful, and I led with my heart, and I led with all the things that make me me, then my ego can absolutely still be intact because I stayed true to myself and the world I want to build. And you let everything else you're just okay with all the other scenarios. But did I do absolutely everything in my power to make it happen, to make it keep running?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And I think I love the sort of internal, external locus of control. It's the first thing I actually work with people on, is taking responsibility for the situation that you're in. Yep. When you give up responsibility to external situations like the economy's bad, inflation, all of these things, don't get me wrong, has some impact, but there's definitely things that you can be doing, because other people are being successful at the moment, other people are making it work. So clearly there's stuff that is inside of your control. And it also, like, I remember I was dealing with a client literally this week, and they were talking about something negative that happened in their business, and it went to, but it was this person's fault. But the reality was, I said, do you think there's anything that you could have done in the build up to all of this? And he said, oh yeah, I probably at the start of the job should have done X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, that's the real issue. You can't control what other people are doing, but you can certainly improve your systems and processes. So I think you're absolutely spot on with the internal and external validation, Aled. Looking ahead then at your journey through entrepreneurship, and what does success look like for you now in the future?
Success looks like more people pursuing work that matters to them. That's it. If I've entered this world and left this world, and people remember me as someone who connected themselves with purposeful work, with their potential, that's what success is for me.
Okay, awesome.
So, in terms of Lumen SEO, can we continue now to build a team and a business that's experiencing rapid growth that have the same level of commitment and love for their work and love for their life, as we grow? And that's one of the challenges I'm really excited for at the moment, is can we keep that consistent? But also the same thing I do now, where I'm trying to ramp up the amount of talks and workshops I do in schools and colleges, because they are falling behind. The education system is stuck in an industrialized world. It's set up for the industrial world, not the digital world. So I really want to go in there and just give some young people some confidence and a bit of energy to feel like, oh, do you know, the world's there for the taking. I can learn anything I could ever want to learn right now. I have access to so much. Let's create something with that. So success to me is more people doing purposeful work.
I think we have the next Simon Squibb on our hands.
That's one step at a time. Yeah, one step at a time. But yeah, he's a good lad.
Yeah, I love it. And just finishing off the podcast today, asking most of the people that come onto the podcast, is there a quote that you live your life by, or one that really has resonated with you?
Oh, where do I start? Yeah, I think there's so many that come to mind that fulfill specific, fulfill so many specific purposes and challenges that have happened in the past. I think the one that sums it all up is, and it's so short, you are your fault. I think that's probably the biggest one that I've been trying to write down as much as possible recently, is going, like we were saying before, what could I have done to improve that scenario? And understanding that the job and the mission is never done. So yeah, you are your fault, I think, is one of my favourite ones.
Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. I think there's so many nuggets of information that entrepreneurs and business owners out there, or people thinking about starting a business, will be able to take from today's podcast, especially around your approach to your team, the mindset that you adopt running a business. So I just want to thank you for your time and coming onto the podcast, and I'm sure we'll do this again in the future.
I hope so. I've had a great time. Thanks, man.
Thank you.